Welcome to the official Swipeable component guide. This component is built using Next.js and TypeScript and pure CSS. The purpose is to help you build your own Swipeable component. Whether you're building a drawer or sheet component, you'll find it very easy to build one now. In this video, I'll just explain how to use my Swipeable component. I'll start with a demo. So previously, I had a sheet component that did not have a draggable feature. With Swipeable, now if I were to drag my sheet, I can drag it out of view to close it. Now you notice if I don't drag it enough, it will not close. I also have it so that the state that my draggable affects the same state that my button affects, and also the same state that my backdrop affects. So if you notice I click on backdrop, it closes the sheet. Just like how the dragon closes the sheet or how the button toggles the sheet. Cool. Now let's start with a demo. Let's create your own drawer component. So I'm going to start by using some boilerplate code. First, I'll use client because we're using state. I'll import React and use state. I'll import my own button component and the swipeable component, and some more boilerplates. I'm going to return some HTML, and I'm going to start with the swipeable component. So the way it works is that it sets children. Because the swipeable component itself is the modal, which means you don't need styling for z-indexing of like 1,000, and you don't need styling for position fixed. It all comes out of the box. Because it sets children, I can have text inside like my name, and I need to provide some state about my swipeable component. So I'm going to create some state. I'll name my state drawer visible, set drawer visible, and that's going to be a boolean. And I want to set it to false because I don't want it to show immediately. I'm going to just pass the state to my swipeable component as visible. And boom. But I need my something to toggle my swipeable to true because it doesn't show yet. It can't just show itself. So I'll need a button to do that. So I'll use my own custom button component, which takes in a variant. Pass primary, it takes some text, which will just be show drawer, and it takes in a function when I click. And I want it to change my state to true when I click. True. Cool. Now what I have, I'm going to need some styling so I can see the borders and the dimensions of what's going on. Okay, what I'm going to do now is see what it looks like. Okay, now if I click on this, boom, we have a sheet component. Actually, there we go. We have a sheet component. I can drag it out of view. If I drag it out of view, the button turns it on. If I don't drag it out of view, the button does nothing. It just works. But I want to make a drawer. That is a sheet component. That is not a drawer component. To do that, I want it so that the user drags down to close it. And I can very easily do that with close direction. This feature I'm extremely proud of because you can choose 4 different directions to close the modal from. That's right. So you can have a sheet, a drawer, a reverse drawer, and a reverse sheet if you ever choose to do that. I'm going to choose down, right? I want you to drag down to close it. I'm also going to change the height because I don't want the height to be the entire viewport. I want it to be a fixed amount. So 1,000 pixels is good with me. Now, I'm going to refresh. If I were to open my drawer, boom, there we go. It just works. It's a working drawer. If I don't do it enough, if I don't drag enough, it just doesn't close. If I drag it, it closes. But it's missing some functionality. Firstly, I wanted to drag more before closing. So I can do that with close travel, which takes in a number. By default is 150. This number represents the amount of pixels you need to drag in order to close it. If I want you to drag 400 pixels, it's just 400. Pretty sure I need to save it. Refresh. Now if I were to drag it, you can see I drag a lot more, about more than double, to close it. That looks like that's the limit. Now, there's one last feature, which is the backdrop. I want to have a backdrop, and I want to click on that backdrop to hide my swipeable. Now this requires another custom component of mine that I made. I'm going to import it. This is just for fun at this point. I'm going to import it, and I'm going to pass in 2 props, which is just the state. I'm only going to pass in the state. And they are going to be passed as show backdrop and set show backdrop. Now you notice that the backdrop does not live anywhere inside of Swipeable. It lives globally, like as global as possible. Now, let's see what it looks like. I toggle my drawer and I see the backdrop turns on, it shows. If I click on my backdrop, everything just works together. Everything uses one single state because everything's so optimized for clean code and modular code. I'm trying to find any edge case I can, and just there are no edge cases really. However, there are really two limitations that you want to be mindful of before using this component. And the two limitations is that, firstly, if you want your modal swipeable, the modal to have a height besides this single height, you cannot do that. Okay, for example, if you were to drag it to the middle, its height will not stay at the middle. It will either close or stay open. This is because I know some drawer components allow you to have it at a different height like this and have it stay, but no. The second limitation is that if you have your modal overflowing out of the viewport because the content is so much, the UI will be crappy. And that is because the way the CSS is done is so that the very bottom of my swipeable modal will be all the way positioned up until the bottom touches the bottom of the viewport. Or, let's say I have a sheet. It'll be in a way, for example here, so that the very right side of my sheet touches the very right side of my viewport. So you imagine that if my sheet was overflowing horizontally, there would be many things that would be overflowing, which would not look good in the UI. So those are the two edge cases or limitations you just want to be mindful of. That's everything I want to cover in this video. If you have any questions, drop them in the comments. I'll get to every single one. And with that, thank you for watching.